Okay, everyone, for this particular project, we're going to talk about pop art, and it's a movement of art, and it was pretty relevant and very well known back in the 70s. It was all about taking images from everyday life and blowing them up and making them bigger than life. Not a huge fan of pop art, but I do like this particular artist, Roy Lichtenstein. He graduated from The Ohio University, and what he did is he took cartoon characters, and he took comic book cartoon characters from back in the day, and he would enlarge them. Not only did he do that, he did other images, but that was a primary thing, and he made them big and bold and full of flat colors. So let's just get in and show you some of his artwork. So again, what you have here is the idea that we're going to do for this project is we're going to copy an image that you're going to find on a Chromebook, but we're going to make it so big that you don't have to draw the entire thing. Remember when we did your shoe? I said if the bigger you make it, the less you have to draw, the easier your picture becomes to draw. So that's what we want to focus on. You are going to choose any image you want. It must be a cartoon image. What I want you to think about is, what do you like to do? What is it that you like doing? So here's another example of his work. And we are going to create a textured look. I'll explain that in a little bit. But what we are going to try and do is we want to try and get a flat color. And a flat color is one solid color with no light or dark areas. As you can see, nice, bright, bold blues, reds, and yellows. So again, this is what he was into. He was taking these comic book images and just enlarging them. And again, making them large, huge. These I've seen one of his shows at Ohio State, and these paintings are pretty impressive. Now, you don't have to choose something. You could just be anything. If you like to do artwork, maybe you choose something like that. Maybe you want to choose a still life. The idea, though, is the size. It has to be a cartoon. We want to copy the cartoon because it's a little easier. We don't want to focus on realism, but we want to make it large, big. Try and use the entire paper. Again, what your image is up to you. As you can see, that part of the hand's cut off. Much easier. And if you look at the fingers, they're not super realistic. They're very cartoon in nature. Again, more of the same idea. Whatever image you choose, we are going to make it so big that it's going to use the entire piece of paper. And what you choose to use or choose to do is up to you. I am going to show you some past projects that students have done. Could be music notes. If you're into music, I've had people do instruments. I've had people that do sports things. I have people that do characters from video games. It doesn't matter. Movies. You name it, as long as it's a cartoon version. Could be a sunset. I've had people that did sunsets before. And if you can't think of anything, the easiest ones out there are emojis. If you choose an emoji, it has to be more than just a smiley face. So for example, over here we have tears, we have glasses, and we have the hands. Now if you do an emoji, you have to trace something that's a perfect circle and make it large, because that's what we're looking for. And that's one of the easier images to do. So let me show you some examples of past students. Now with these, we actually worked with paint, so we're not going to be able to do that considering the situation we have. So you're going to have to do it with markers, at least for the shading of the characters. But if you notice, you can see we don't see the entire image here. You got a basketball with the hoop. You got someone who likes singing. You've got some cartoon characters and so forth. But again, we're trying not to draw. Now, even though this is the whole image, it takes up the whole piece of paper. The bigger you can make it, where we don't see the entire thing, the easier your drawing becomes. People, if you choose to do a person, people are a little tough. So feel free to try that. They are the hardest one. I really like the shoes, the dance shoes. You can see down here we have a different version of the basketball. And again, just more different types of characters. So again, what we're going to do is you are going to choose a picture from your Chromebook. You are going to enlarge it, and then we're going to transfer it over to a piece of paper. Now I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute, but at least you now get the idea. For the background, don't worry about the background yet. I'm going to show you how to do that coming up in just a minute as well. Okay, so this is how we're going to enlarge our image for our pop art picture. First thing you need to do is find your image. I'm going to do Speedy Gonzales. If you do something like a dog, cat, or something like that, or even a superhero or a movie, or make sure, sometimes you might have to type in cartoon character. Obviously, Speedy Gonzales is a cartoon character. Once you get here and you figure out which picture you want to use, then you're going to come in and we're going to open up a new tab. You're going to come over to our waffle area up in the corner. You're going to open up a new doc. And you come in, we're going to hit blank doc. So we have a Google Docs open. Now, we're going to go back to our picture. Now, depending on when you pull your picture over, sometimes you'll not be able to drag them into the Google Doc. It's just going to be a trial and error. Eventually, you'll find one that you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor on this. I'm going to put one finger on, and I'm going to drag it up until I add it to the Google Doc. Once it's here, the next step I can do is, this is how we're going to enlarge it. If you put the cursor on it and you take your two fingers, you can enlarge it. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm making it so big that it's going off of the screen. So that means where it touches the top of the paper here, or the top of the screen here and the bottom of the screen there, that's going to be the size of my paper. If you can't get your drawing done in one time, I would bookmark that. You could save it and then come back to it, so you don't have to redo the whole thing over. I don't mind just redoing it as long as you remember your picture. It's up to you, whatever is easiest. But if you have a different way you want to do this, as long as you can get that enlarged to that large size, that is what we need to do. So once you're done with that, then I'm going to show you the next step, which is how to set up your drawing and how to begin drawing. I'll do that in just a second. Okay, I have my picture enlarged. Now I'm going to draw it. Now, depending on your picture, sometimes your paper may need to go up and down. It just depends on your image. This image is wider than it is tall, so I'm going to do wide. So what I want to consider is that my piece of paper is the same size as where the image goes off and we can no longer see it. And I'm just going to begin to draw. So I know that the hat goes off of the paper. It starts up there and comes all the way down to a certain point. Again, where you start is up to you. I know that his head comes in and comes around. This is his little cheek area, which then comes over. And I'm kind of going off the desk here. So now I'm going to put his mouth in, which I know comes in there. I'm going to come up and I know his hair's coming. And all I'm doing is going, now, all right, do you have to be exactly perfect? No, but you want to kind of get it as best as you can. I know that his ear comes up in here, and I have this coming down. So I'm just drawing piece by piece. Now I'm going kind of fast. You might want to slow down, okay? Because the faster you go, the more inaccurate your drawing is going to be. Again, we talked about that in our, see, I already know I made a mistake here because that's not lining up right, so I have to adjust this again because I'm going fast. Remember when we did our contour line drawing? Slow down. The faster you go, the more inaccurate your drawing is going to be. In fact, this is still off. I can tell because this should be over here a little bit more, coming up into there. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to redraw these, and I can come back and erase that. I know that my hat's going off the paper here, coming over. And now I'm going to begin in here with the mouth. I have that part of the mouth. I know that this is here. This is going to go up there. And I have, so you see how I'm doing. I'm getting a little faster now just because I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me do this, but you get the idea. And then I know that I have this part coming in here. I have his finger. And again, I'm doing this very fast. You do not want to go that fast. You want to go kind of slow. And I have the other part of the hat coming down, which actually comes into there. So I actually made it a little bit bigger, which is fine because my hat goes off the paper. So that is the basis for our drawing. I'm going to outline this really quick, come back to you, and show you how we're going to add the color to your picture. But notice it is using most of the entire piece of paper. I have a little bit of background here. It goes off the top, off the bottom, off the side, which is what we want when we enlarge it. Okay, so I have my picture drawn out, ready to go. Now, before you start adding color, outline it. If you have a black Sharpie, use a black Sharpie. Make it black, because actually in the actual pictures that Kandinsky, wrong person, Roy Lichtenstein did for pop art, he did a heavy outline for everything. So we want to give it that cartoony look. So we don't need this, because here's the thing. You can make it exactly the same colors, or you can change any colors you want. It doesn't matter. So I'm not even going to use this. Plus, I want to give you some more room to see this, and this is kind of in my way because I'm a little short of area. So I'm going to kind of just color in a little bit, so I don't need this. I'm just going to move this aside. So now you can see this a little bit better, and we're just going to add some color. So again, what we're trying to do is create a flat color, and a flat color is a solid color with no light or dark areas. So if I was to shade it in like that, that's really not a flat color because you see white areas. A flat color has no light or dark areas. It's called a solid color. Now, unfortunately, we do this in paint when we're at school. Don't worry, we're not painting here. But since you guys are at home, in fact, we're using the same things you are. We are going to use markers, okay? So if you can't get it perfectly flat, not a problem. You just want to get it close. Is that close to a flat color? Absolutely. Do I have any light? No, I got a couple white spots, but it looks pretty much like a solid black. So that's for my nose, my eyes. So now I'm going to do inside the mouth. So I'm going to take some of these, and I think I'm going to use, if I can get them out, there we go. I did notice that this part was like a brownish color, so I'm going to take my marker. And again, with the markers, I know we see lines coming out. That's okay, all right? We're just trying to make it a solid color, but that's what it is. A flat color is a solid color with no light or dark areas. Take your time when you're shading all of your pictures. Take your time. It's not how fast you get it done, because I can actually make this flat the slower I go, or if I had markers that worked. So here's my inside of my mouth is going to be this area here. Okay, again, you can kind of see where you see some light and dark shadowed areas. We can't avoid that. If we had paints, you would have no problem doing this. So I'm going to do that, and now I'm going to make his tongue, and we're going to go with this color for his tongue. So you're going to color in every part that is. Anything that's white, what do you think you do? You leave it white. So there's the start of what I would do. I would finish coloring this entire thing, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to do the background in just a moment. Again, you can change any colors you want as long as you're trying to make them a flat color. Okay, now we're on to our background. So what we're going to do for the background is we're going to create some kind of a texture. Now there's two different ways you can do this. One is called hatching, one is called cross hatching. I'm going to show you the hatching, and then I'll show you the cross hatching. For the background, you need to use either very skinny markers like this or pencils. You don't want to use thick markers, and crayons are not good for this either, because we need some pretty precise lines. Now, before you do this, I need you to practice this on a different piece of paper, any kind of scrap paper. You could do it on the back. The only problem with if you do it on the back, if you notice, things bleed through. So if you could just grab a scrap piece of paper, that's fine. And the first thing we're going to do is called hatching. Now, hatching, there's a couple different ways you can do it. I like to keep it very simple. What we're going to use is either circles, triangles, or squares. keep it that simple. I have seen someone do hearts. That's about as extravagant as you want to get. And the whole idea upon this is we're kind of going to shade it from light to dark, and it's going to create a texture. Now, it's not really going to look light or dark, but it's going to be close together and slowly spread apart. And for this, you can do multiple colors too. It doesn't have to be one. So I'm going to start off, and I'll show you how this works. Again, practice this before you do it on your paper. So I'm going to start with circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot on the paper. And after the dot, I'm going to put a circle around it. And then I'm going to put another circle around it. Now, the whole thing about this process is that you need to go very slow. The slower you go, the better this appears. So now as I get bigger, I'm going to start spreading my lines further apart. The bigger I get, the farther apart the lines become. This is why you need to have a skinny marker. This is way too hard to do with a, well, you can do with a thick marker, but the problem is it's hard to get in the center spots right there. So there's that. Now I'm going to start another circle. And you know what? I'm going to change colors. Even though I'm going to do did a light brown, this will be a little bit darker brown. So now I'm going to start with another dot. And again, I'm going to go a little bit faster here just so you don't have to watch me do this all day. Trust me, I know you don't want to sit and watch me do this. I'm not Bob Ross. He's got way more hair than I do. And then notice how they overlap. Kind of similar to when we were doing our amorphic shape project. Okay, so then I'm going to come in and I'm going to do another one. Now, I could do circles, squares, and triangles all together, or I could do all triangles, all squares. It doesn't matter. The same process. But I kind of like circles. That's just my thing. I'm into circles. Can't help it. And we'll do one more circle there. So what I would do is continue that throughout the entire background. That is hatching. Now we're going to do cross hatching. And for cross hatching, there's two different ways to do it. I'm going to show you the easy way first. I suggest you do it that way. You can try the more difficult way, but again, it is a little bit more difficult. The first thing for this, it is a pattern. Again, practice this on a different piece of paper. And the pattern goes as follows. I like to use 5 lines. I wouldn't do more than 5. I wouldn't do less than 3. So I go up and down, and now I'm going to go sideways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sideways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. And all I'm doing is alternating. Up and down, or what we call horizontal and vertical lines. Now, the faster you do it, the worse it looks. And I'm doing this way too fast. Slow down. Everything is meant to be done slow. I'm also at a funky angle here, but that's okay. So now I'm going to go in the next row, I'm going to do the opposite. So instead of going that way, I'm going to go the opposite way. But notice, when I do my opposite set of lines, I always have them touch the set of lines that are in front of them. Now this creates a really interesting texture, and actually you guys have seen this since you were here at school in Avon Lake if you grew up here. And done. So now I'm going to do the opposite again here. And this is all you do. It's just an alternating pattern. This pattern, I mentioned you have seen this before. Next time you are playing with one of the balls at school, the recess balls, this is the pattern on the outside of those balls. So again, this is called cross hatching. Now this is the easy way because I'm only going in 2 directions. It does take a little bit longer. You don't have to do them this small. You can do them bigger. I've had kids that did them really small. I've had kids that have done them really big. So that is called cross hatching. Now, here's the other form of cross hatching, which is a little bit harder. And for this, I'm going to do this same process, but I'm going to go in different directions. And do this, I always like to turn my paper. I'll do them a little bit bigger. I turn my paper again. I'm doing 5 lines, but my lines are always going in different directions, but they're always touching each other. And the reason why this is harder is because you have to make sure they always go in a different direction. Because if you make them going in the same direction, it doesn't really work. But it has a completely different look to it. That's the nice thing about it. And I'll get you back. You probably can't see it right now, but I'll let you see it in a second. So, that is what hatching looks like. Or cross-hatching, excuse me. That is the harder version. I suggest you stick to the easy way. It is easier to do it just up and down and side to side. Again, practice these in the background. Now, you're only going to choose one of these. You either choose hatching or cross-hatching to do to your entire background. You could do one color, alternate colors. The only way you can do 2 different forms is if you notice, my character starts here, comes all the way down, and here. So here's this whole entire area is a shape. I have another part over here that's a background and another. So I could do actually one style here, a different one here, and then go back and do a different one over here. That's up to you. Or you can just stick to one. But that's going to be your textured background. Again, skinny markers, practice before you do it, slow down. The faster you go, the more mistakes you are going to make. And this is our pop art project, focusing on size, some texture, and flat color. Enjoy.